everybody has intuition. Some people are more left brain than right brain, so right brain is where the intuition is developed. But in Body Talk and Body Intuitive, we call it structured intuition. So we're working with our left brain. We're working with developing, our understanding of science and Chinese medicine, and then our right brain, developing our intuition so that we can really see deeply into what's going on and sense deeply.
Welcome to Harmonic Alignment, a podcast that explores the new frontier of energy medicine, bridging the gap between Western medicine and quantum physics, giving you easy and practical solutions. Guided by me, Dr. Larisa Sharipova, and me, Priscilla Koblenz. Join us on a journey discovering your harmonic alignment. On today's episode of Harmonic Alignment, Dr. Larisa Sharipova connects with a returning guest, the Qigong master, Laura Chalfant. On today's episode, Laura is talking about Body Intuitive, this incredible new energy practice that helps her clients tap into their body's innate ability to heal using energy. Body Intuitive can help clear all kinds of health issues, from chronic disease to ancestral epigenetic clearing to hormone and neurotransmitters to flushing out toxins and clearing your energy, stress, hormones, weight loss. This is such a cool modality. She's going to also discuss how the energy centers of the body work, the definition of shamanism. It's a beautiful and insightful conversation about this powerful healing modality in energy medicine called Body Intuitive.
I'm so happy today to interview my friend Laura that I interviewed previously. So welcome, Laura, again to our podcast.
Thank you, Larisa. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Okay, thank you for doing this again with us. And you are energy healer and body intuitive, and you use a lot of different modalities. And today we're going to talk about body intuitive. So tell us, what is body intuitive and how did you discover it?
Well, my business name is Chalfant Integrative Medicine, and Body Intuitive is a piece of my energy modalities that I use. I initially started studying Body Talk. A friend of mine did a session for me of Body Talk, and I was like, this is very cool. So I studied Body Talk for years. And then out of Body Talk grew a system called Body Intuitive. And I jumped on it in the beginning and started training in Body Intuitive. So I trained really intensely during the pandemic and received a master's certification in Body Intuitive.
And how many years you've been doing this specific modalities?
I think I started in 2015. And before that, I already had an energy healing practice.
So can you explain what energy medicine is and how we can use for healing?
That's actually a really big question. Yes. So in my training, I've learned to fine-tune my senses, learn to fine-tune my psychic senses, my clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. Because I've been touching people for so many years, I really can feel deeply into what's going on in the nervous system and the cellular level. So in energy medicine or integrative healing, what is happening is I'm working intuitively. I'm doing intuitive scans to see where in the body there are blockages, where there's stagnation, where the system isn't quite functioning well, where the nervous system is really tight, where the energy system is deficient, and things aren't flowing well, it's not strong. I just am kind of like sitting with somebody for a little while, and the session starts to evolve out of me being able to sense into their energy field and sense into what is going on inside of their body, inside of their mind, their emotions, their psyche. So it's a very comprehensive, multidimensional way of healing and very, very effective.
So you've been practicing energy healing for a while before you developed and discovered that Body Intuitive.
Yeah, I took my first energy healing class. It was called Energy Healing Basics at Kripalu Yoga Ashram. I lived at Kripalu Yoga Ashram from the time I was 28 till 33. I lived there for 5 years, and I took a course called Kripalu Energy Healing Basics, and I learned how to work with chakras. And then I learned how to work with meridians. I did shiatsu, I did Reiki, so I started off in those.
Exploring different type of energy modalities.
Yes. I studied anthropology after I learned all those things because I was so interested in traditional healing systems where they were working with shamanism, they were working with energy, and they were working with calling on something greater for healing. Calling on spirits, calling on ancestors, calling on the community to help people to heal. And I also studied shamanism. I did a lot of research in shamanism when I was in college.
You said you went to college for anthropology. Did you combine your education as an anthropologist with your spiritual or energy healing? Or did it give you a deep understanding of energy healing or energy medicine?
Yes, I really got into shamanism for a while. I studied a number of different shamanic traditions. I looked at Japanese shamanism, I looked at Chinese medicine, some of the, the older classical Chinese medicine where it was very shamanic. I was looking into shamanism in Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Africa, and New Zealand. So it was a pretty comprehensive. I also looked at healers in Europe. There's a lot of healers in Europe, and I know that you know that in Russia. There's some shamanic traditions in Russia. So it's just like ancient medicine. It's what was here before modern medicine came.
Can you explain for people who don't know what shamanism or shaman means?
In my experience, a shaman lives in a world that's betwixt and between. They're living outside of culture. So in traditional cultures, there's a community and there's a strong network of people who are working together to...
Like a tribe, tribal community.
A tribe, clan, tribe. And the shaman usually lives outside of the tribe because they're really fine-tuning their skills with nature. And I think most shamanic traditions are generational. In the American Indian traditions, they're passed down through the generations. So I've read this book once that was really cool. It was about female shamans, and when this little girl was 2 years old, the parents sent her out into the woods to sit by herself for, I think, overnight. They're brought into being able to sense nature and being able to attune themselves to the natural world. And that's what shamanism is to me, is being able to attune yourself to the natural world. I think especially in this day and age, we're so out of tune with the natural world. We're really more attuned to electronics, and it really affects our energy system. We have a lot of stagnant energy or static energy in our system from the electronics.
And also we don't develop our intuition as much as we could. And would you say another name for shaman is like a healer or medicine woman?
Yeah, they're definitely healing. Shaman who are medicine women, or traditional midwives, herbalists. There was a lot of chanting that happened. There was a lot of singing that happened around to call in spirits. There's the use of animals and animal imagery. Oh my gosh, shamanism is such a huge thing. There was one point when I was reading about and kind of experiencing on some level where you can transmute and become an animal. So I think in the traditional shamanic healers, they could transmute from becoming a jaguar to a human. It's a very rich form of healing. I bring it in a little bit just intuitively from what I've learned. I didn't study it in depth, but I did a lot of research in shamanism.
In different cultures. Are they all similar, or they have their own cultural differences? Or
yeah, they all have their own cultural differences. They all have their own techniques, I would say. There was one book that I read that it was called The Sorrow of the Lonely and the Burning of the Dancers. It was an initiation rite for teenagers, and they would dance around a fire, and they would dance, and the older shamans would play instruments, and they would get so hot because there was this energy, they called it nun, that would rise up and come up and really burn their body. And they would jump into the fire to cool off. It was so intense that they felt so much energy. And so I really resonated with that, because when I was living at Kripalu, we were really working with rising our Kundalini energies up. So I think that there are similarities. It's spoken of it in different ways, and it's experienced in different ways. It's very, very rich, and I loved that time of my life.
Mm-hmm. I see it's like a spiritual medicine. Would you say so?
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Definitely working with spirits.
Spiritual medicine, that's a new name. and the top of the energy medicine, right? It's a part of kind of all holistic approach to healing. And speaking of intuition, any person can create or develop intuition. Can they tap into their intuition?
Yeah, everybody has intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more left brain than right brain, so right brain is where the intuition is developed. But in Body Talk and Body Intuitive, we call it structured intuition. So we're working with our left brain. We're working with developing, our understanding of science and Chinese medicine, and then our right brain, developing our intuition so that we can really see deeply into what's going on and sense deeply. But there's very specific trainings on how you develop your intuition, and muscle checking is what I learned in Body Talk. It's kind of a very simple technique. You just take your fingers like this, and you ask a question. So maybe you could do this with me.
Mm-hmm.
You could say, so this is
link your fingers
right.
together. Mm-hmm.
So we have a no would be when it's tight, it's like no, and a yes would be this, that it opens.
So if something is true, it says it's yes, and you unlink, right? Unlink your fingers.
Right, and no,
it stays together.
You can say, my name is Larisa, just say that.
My name is Larisa.
So, right, so you could say, my name is Laura.
My name is Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, so something that is true, the link is released, right?
Yes.
Or when it's not true, it stays the same, or it's opposite?
It just stays the same. It's
Stay tight. And there is a lot of different muscle technique, right?
It's very different. Like I like to use this one, which would be no, yes. No,
Yes.
yes.
And the arms and the kinesiology, it's all the same
That's
concept.
different. So that's muscle testing. This is called muscle checking. So
What's the difference?
Well, muscle testing is testing specific muscles. Like it's a very specific training to test for muscle weakness. This is intuition. This is just learning to develop your intuition. And what I found is that some people just they feel they can't do it, but the best way to train in it is just to keep doing it. You just say, this is no, this is yes. You just tell your body, this is no,
train your body,
this is yes,
what's yes,
this is no, this is yes. And then you start with simple things. Like your name, your age, simple things like that, so that your body starts to understand what it's supposed to do.
For me, interesting, because for me, intuition, it's mean you feel with your gut, or you feel with your body sensation. When something is not right, your body gets tense, or you feel like butterflies, or you feel some tensions in the body. Is it the same thing?
It is the same thing.
Intuition.
When you're doing a session with somebody and you're really looking through, so there's a mind-body map, and you want to just kind of go through the mind-body map, that's the reason we do the muscle
For
checking.
you as a practitioner, it's a very convenient way to muscle test.
Yes, because you can go through a lot of different things and you can see what's going on in the body. I usually use it to check my intuition because, like you said, I'm very intuitive and I'll have a gut sense of what's going on, and then I'll know, but then I still check. I still muscle check.
To confirm yourself.
Yeah. Because things can come up for me really fast. The whole session can come up for me in a flash. So I just want to double check.
And maybe go deeper on different questions, right? You feel that something's happening in the body, but exactly precisely what it is, you do a muscle test.
Yeah.
When clients come to your session, how do you assess the body energetically, muscle testing? What's happening when people come for body intuitive session with you?
Well, first of all, I do a very in-depth history. I'll look at everybody's blood work. I'll look at what's going on
from the physical perspective, right? Like health-wise
I want to see
and
everything.
history, like family history, trauma, emotions, and physical.
Yeah, I'll look at any kind of injuries they have, surgeries, just like, a doctor would kind of do a history. I do very in-depth history because it makes it much easier for me to have a map and to see where I'm heading. And then before each session, I'll ask them what they want to work with. So there's usually a focus of healing that somebody wants to focus on. Although people don't always know what is
happening in the
what's
body.
happening. They don't always know where to go. For instance, I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and she has all these lung issues and all this grief, and she had ancestors whose ancestors died in the Holocaust, and so I think during this time of year, during Rosh Hashanah, the memories come up, the grief comes up, and it's just a pretty intense period of time for her. So I will look into epigenetics for a session like that. I'll look into what kind of epigenetic locks are in her system that are continuing to cause the emotions, the grief, and the lung issues.
And also you said that grief and lungs in the same sentence. And we know that energetically emotions can reside in different organs in our body.
Exactly.
Based on traditional Chinese medicine and energy. So we know that lungs represent emotion and grief, right? We know that liver is anger and kidney is fear and so on. So we have all that emotional centers in our body that's stuck in different organs, right? So that's what you can discover during the sessions. Also, maybe they have some history that they know of the trauma and emotions. You mentioned about epigenetics, so explain us what epigenetic is and how you work with those epigenetics.
Yeah, you use epigenetics a lot. It's a very kind of fast way to go in and clear trauma, clear illness, COVID. There was a lot of epigenetic markers that got locked in during COVID.
Why do you think it is? Why COVID create that problem?
I think that the biggest thing was loneliness along with the illness. So there's an emotion and an illness that locks it in together.
Like emotions and physical manifestation or,
Right. What locks in epigenetic markers is some kind of trauma and then some kind of illness or toxin.
Like a perfect storm.
Like a war, like you're in a war, if you're living in poverty, if you are in starvation. Loneliness is huge when it comes to locking in markers. So a lot of the epigenetic markers were locked in during COVID. And
so what are the genetic markers? Can you explain to our listeners?
So we have our human genome, our genes, and then we have an epigenome, which is the markers on top of the genes. They're protein molecules that turn the genes on and off. There are certain genes that we want to have turned on. There are certain genes that we don't want to have turned on. So there's specific markers in specific areas that keep that gene turned off or turn it on. When you have this trauma and you have an epigenetic lock, the gene could be locked on or it could be locked off. A lot of what happens, especially with something like COVID or the flu of 1912, Black Plague, you could have ancestral epigenetic markers from those, but we have acquired epigenetic markers from COVID. So acquired means it happens in this lifetime. Ancestral means that you carried it in from your ancestors.
And I think that's how evolution happened with our genetics changes or expression of our genes. So maybe 2 centuries ago, there is something happened like famine, and our genetic expression changed at that time because our body needed to adapt to certain living condition. And we carry that through the generation and generation to our nowadays. And we still have the epigenetic changes that happen, many generations ago. And now we have another famine or another health crisis like COVID or some other issues happening. So we put that on the top of the ancestral epigenetic markers, correct? And
Yeah.
that's what the health problem started, because you already had some predisposition from our ancestors, and now we have a new exposure or epigenetics event, I would say.
Exactly. So if you have an ancestral epigenetic condition, and then you have on top of that an acquired condition, that's a perfect storm.
Manifestation of certain problem, usually related to health, physical or mental.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So how do you work with epigenetics? How do you get to our genetic expression? How you can affect with your healing modalities that deep, I would say, biological changes in our body?
Yeah, it's such a cool piece of my work. I love it so much. First of all, I want to say that epigenetics can be affected in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So good exercise, good diet, supplementation, good relationships.
You mean in a positive way can
In
be
a
affected,
positive
so
way.
we can change those epigenetics markers or proteins, how those genes going to be expressed based on our lifestyle and nutrition.
Exactly.
But also we can affect them negatively the same way. So if you have a bad nutrition, or not good lifestyle, smoking and all that, so that can affect our epigenome and how our genes going to express, so positively or negatively.
Absolutely. Yes. I always guide people first for a healthy lifestyle, because it's going to make a big difference in being able to sustain the epigenetic changes that happens and comes in with the session. The client, they have to take responsibility for their own health too.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do as much as I can, but if the client isn't taking responsibility, it's not going to transform in the way that it could. So to answer your question, I'll go through a lot of scanning to see where the epigenetic marker is. So
What do you mean scanning?
muscle checking,
Mhm.
intuitive scanning. So I'm just going through and scanning the body. I'm intuitively looking at the body. I'm feeling it out. I will muscle check. I do other types of scanning also, and I feel into the body. Maybe I'll feel into the brain and see what might be going on in there. 95% of the epigenetic markers are in immune cells. That's something that I just found out a few years ago. So mostly we're looking in immune cells and inflammatory immune cells or anti-inflammatory immune cells. COVID is a really good example. There's a lot of cytokines in the brain. So people who have long COVID and they're losing their memory and they're losing their functioning ability and their breathing, it's from inflammation. So it's from inflammation that's locked in. Mm-hmm. And so if we can get to those immune cells and the epigenetic markers inside the immune cells. So for instance, if we're looking at something ancestrally, they're mostly histone markers, I find, come in ancestrally. But it could be methylation markers that have been removed so that the gene is not turned off. So let's say we have the TNF-alpha cytokine, inflammatory gene or inflammatory cytokine in the brain, and inside the TNF-alpha we have a histone activating marker, and it's continuing to create brain flames. So we energetically go in there and do some Chinese medicine protocols or body intuitive protocols to turn that gene off, to turn the histone activator off so that it's not causing inflammation, it's not continually activating the inflammatory cytokine.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. How exactly you do turn on and off those epigenetic markers? You said protocol, Chinese medicine protocol, other protocol. How logistically you do it? Are you visualize it, or you do create an energy field? And we know that we all have energy field and information that comes from the field, and we use that in different things. So how you specifically in Body Intuitive do it?
Well, I'm feeling into the cells. This is my own way that I work. There's different
Like specific techniques that unique to you that you develop with the 8 years of
Well, that really
learning.
has to do with my form of intuition.
Okay.
So I'm very sensate and I'm very visual. So those are the two forms that I generally call on. I also have all the other forms developed, but I will go in, I'll put my hands on somebody's head, I'll feel into what's going on, and then I get some hits, I listen, I sense. Like you were saying, it's like my body starts tingling and I know that I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
You can feel everything. I feel into the cells, I'll feel into maybe the microglial cells, the brain macrophages or astrocytes to see exactly which cells are being affected. It could be the blood vessels, it could be the blood-brain barrier. I'm just kind of intuitively go in there, and then it's very clear to me. It's the cells speak, and if you're resonating with the cells, there's a communication going back and forth, and I think that they speak just as easily as you and I do.
So you send your specific vibration to specific cell that affect. You send in information, and there is a resonance between your intuition and the cell. So you just give the energy or that information that's needed. Correct?
Depending on where it is, I might use like a conception vessel or governing vessel 20 at the crown for pituitary gland. So that might be something that I'll just kind of calm things down. But generally, I'll just speak to the cells. I'm going to organize and optimize circulation, hydration. We're going to cool you off. Sometimes, there may be inflammation, and we're going to activate an anti-inflammatory cell. So the anti-inflammatory cells may be turned off, so we're going to turn them on. So it's just a matter of sensing into the nervous system. Like you can sense when the nervous system is tight, you can sense when it's hot, you can sense when it's deficient. I've been doing this for almost 40 years now, so I just refined my capacity to.
It's so cool, but you must know all the names and the cells and all the inside of body so precisely. Then you can speak to those specific organelles, and that's where the medicine part come with like Western and Eastern medicine come together, right?
And I have some templates if I'm not sure. It's like
If you forget the name, I'm looking my cheat sheet.
Or actually, you have all the different areas of the brain and all the different cells and the different immune cells. So that's where I start doing my muscle checking. Is it this inflammatory cytokine or this one or this one? Or is it another one? What part of the brain am I going into? That's where I'm muscle checking.
Okay, for do very specific about certain things.
And then there's certain parts of the brain, they have different functions. So you're looking at what is not functioning properly. What part of the brain isn't functioning properly? Is it memory? Is it
amygdala, that's emotional connection, or is it lymphatic and all?
Cortisol overload. You can see when somebody's in an amygdala crisis, threat stress response. You just feel it out. You feel like if somebody's got too much fire in their system, or if the grief is really running, if there's a lot of damp. So that's the Chinese medicine part. So bringing the Chinese and Eastern and Western medicine together is really very cool.
What people experience when they come to your session?
Well, after we sit down and we talk, we lay on the table, and I'll start pulling up a session right away. Usually people go into a very deep state, so I believe that people are going into a theta state because they're still conscious. Some people do fall asleep, but even if they're snoring a little bit, they're still conscious. So I think it's a deep theta state. I believe that it's because I'm touching into the cellular level of things that it really drops people into their parasympathetic nervous system, and they're in a very deep relaxed state. So that's pretty much across the board. Every now and then I get somebody that just can't do that, but that's okay. The session will still happen. So I use my mind-body maps to see where I'm going to go in the session. I definitely muscle check to see what kind of session is going to come up. So, for instance, there was a woman that I worked with a few months ago, and she started talking about her grandmother, and it just led to the mother's 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 mother that's where the lock is. That's what happened. Something happened to her, because there was suicide in her family. So she was raped. And so it just kind of, those epigenetic locks came in through the
generational trauma, and
you.
shows up in hers after a few generations.
And her mother actually killed herself, and so she's really working this out. She's really wanting to clear this. It's a really interesting way to work with trauma because it's not like psychotherapy where you're talking about it, which I love psychotherapy, but it's different in that you almost discover that there was trauma. You don't know that there was trauma, so we don't always know where it comes from, but in trusting my intuition and trusting my muscle checking, I can see, wow, it's kind of like family constellations.
Yes, I just was about to say.
You're like, this is the ancestor that, was in trouble. We can't clear the markers from the ancestors, but we can clear the trauma through the generations. Like if you can work with clearing your own trauma in this lifetime, then it's going to help your further generations. So that's the beauty of this work, is it won't carry through to the rest of your generation. And if you have a child, we could actually simultaneously work on your child to clear the markers so that they don't have that carried through.
And you see a lot of emotions manifest as a physical signs or symptoms or even diseases, right? And if you clear that emotional trauma, your body can heal some kind of physical illness.
Yeah. I'll give you a little example.
Yes, I would love to.
I'm always having problems projecting my voice. Everybody's always telling me, you gotta talk louder,
Laura. I had problem that before too, and I'm telling my story how I clear it.
Right, so I had an acupuncture session a couple of weeks ago, and my acupuncturist said it was the opera singer's points. Because I was saying, I'd like to be able to work on my voice. And so she put these needles in, and oh my gosh, I tapped into something way back in my throat where I didn't realize I wasn't breathing. I didn't have the breath, I didn't have the sensation back there. It was shut down. And then I realized I was in a fire when I was 2. And my mother and I had to go through smoke to get out of the house. And so, I realized, this must be from the smoke. And then I went to my EMDR therapist a couple of days after, just because I thought this was really interesting territory. And we found that there is fear, terror locked in there. So it's the combination of the toxins from the smoke and the terror from having to,
live through that trauma fire.
Right, and I didn't even know if anybody was going to find me because I was by myself and there was smoke. And so here I am, 68, and it's
you just finding out that it's locked in my chest and in my throat. It's never too late to clear the trauma and heal that. Now you're gonna project your voice.
But I have known about the fire for years, but I didn't. This was
you
so
did not connect.
It was so cellular. That's what the brilliance is of this work: is you tap into the cellular dimension, you tap into the tissue.
And tapping, it's like a more energetic connection, tapping into energy of that specific event, trauma, or something happened to you long time ago. And we know that energy it doesn't have a time, space, so whatever energy was there, it's still in your body. And if you release it, or even become aware of it and release it, so you become more free of a lot of different things in our life.
Yeah.
Now you feel free.
Right.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons I teach Qigong, because I want my clients to be able to strengthen their energetic system so that they can sustain things. When you're practicing Qigong, you're really building energy and you're really transmuting your whole cellular dimension through energy.
I'm so happy for you, Laura, that you found it finally, and now you're going to have a lot
I hope so. I hope I'll be able to. Really.
I have my own problem with projecting my voice because I had another trauma, emotional trauma that I lived in my marriage for 25 years, suppressing myself, suppressing my emotions, suppressing the way I can speak for myself. So my throat chakra was very close, very cold, and nobody could hear me speaking. I always afraid to speak. And when I start learning about energy medicine, and I started also with chakras and energy of the chakras, and I test my chakras, and my throat chakra was very close and cold, and I know I always had throat problem, like I had inflammation, postnasal drip, a lot of physical manifestation in my throat, and it was connected to my chakra that was closed. So when I opened my chakra, I start projecting my voice. I was not afraid to speak for myself, and now I can talk without microphone. And now I can express myself much better than I could before. So it's power of energy medicine, power of energy that we can tap into in our own body, and also we can help others with different energy modalities like you do.
And I really feel like when you're a healer, an energy healer, you need to work on yourself. Whatever is locked in your system is really important to clear out, because you want to be able to, for one, be a really clear vessel for healing, and also the more you can heal, the deeper you can go with your clients. I've been doing healing work since I was in my 20s, and I really feel I can address absolutely any issue that comes onto my table. I really don't have any fear around that, because I've been there. In Jungian psychology and shamanism, you're diving deep into the shadow. You need to go deep into the shadow to be able to understand where your locks are. Basically at this point, I can hold a space of light for somebody, who's in a very dark place, and who's in a lot of fear, is having a lot of crazy things manifesting, and I feel very safe at this point. But that took me a while. It takes a while to be able to
And
get
we're
there.
all in progress of our own healing, so it's never stops. We remove layers of the onion, like one at a time, and we never stop, healing ourselves, because it's a progress. Health is not a destination; it's a progress.
And once you step into a spiritual tradition, you really know that, because you're on this jet stream, and there's so much that surfaces, so much that you had no idea was there. And at this point, it's so important to me, and I love it so much. I love being able to see what's locked into my system and how to release it. How do we do this? It's a really amazing journey. It's not just healing. It's like
it's life.
It's destiny. It's your
life purpose.
Yeah, your life purpose. It's like you came here for a reason.
Yeah.
And you want to find out what that is, and you want to be able to get clear everything on the way, so that you can do what you were meant to do.
How do you follow up with clients after session, and how many sessions they even need?
It really depends on the client. I have some clients who have complicated health conditions, and it's a little bit more difficult, so they come pretty regularly. Usually I recommend every other week for a while, and then every month. But there are some people, like I worked with this woman that I was talking about, who we worked with the ancestors, and we worked on a lot of different levels. And all of a sudden she just took off in her life, and she started writing the book that she's been wanting to do for a long time, and painting. And I haven't seen her for a while, but I know she's doing exactly what she wants to do, and this is kind of a big step for her. So I love to see that, where somebody just takes off in their life. And I also like to support people when they're in a health crisis and they're just working really hard with it. But I do feel like when somebody's in a health crisis, it's really important to find a way, not just to always get somebody else to heal you, but to find a way to heal yourself. So I'm usually guiding people in protocols that they can do for themselves to work with their own energy during the week.
Because we just give them tools, so being tool for their own healing, but it's the body, their own body that heals. So if we remove certain things that body doesn't need, or give them something that body needs, like energy, right? So body can heal itself. We know that. But when we work with clients, they have to understand that it's their body that heals itself. We just help them to start the process of healing.
Right, or it's kind of like peeling the layers of the onion, like really kind of calming down the immune system so that the body has a chance to heal, or calming down the mind. I think a lot of people are really caught up in their fear. So yeah, it's a journey, and it's a really interesting process. I love my work so much, and I love to see people change. Usually, if somebody's in a real health crisis, you look at their face and you can see it on their face, and after this session, the color of their face has changed. I know, because I do a lot of long distance sessions, so that's one of my barometers, like how is this working? You can really see it.
Is there any difference working in person or in remote healing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference. However, remote healing is very, very effective. I do a lot of remote sessions, especially with people who are sicker. It's harder for them to get out of the house, and so I'll do a lot of remote sessions, or with people who are in other countries. And I particularly like the in-person session because I can feel into the energy, and people like it too. But I just say it's a little different. It's not hugely different.
Mm-hmm. So the results is the same, you just different experience when you have somebody in person and touching you with the hands, and somebody who is on another side of the screen. So the results are the same because energy is unlimited, right? If we use energy medicine, it can be done anywhere in space. It's not limited.
Yeah, and I think that during the pandemic we really found that out because we couldn't touch people. I did my master's certification all online, all distance sessions, and we honed our skills of how to work with people long distance, and it was really brilliant.
What would you say to people if they want to work with you? What they would know in advance before they come to your session?
Well, I think that people usually come to me when they've tried a lot of other things and it's not quite getting them to where they want to be. So that's the first thing. I mean, people will come to me for different reasons, but the majority of my clients are people who've been working on themselves for a long time, and so they're really receptive to energy. Not that you have to be really receptive to energy. That doesn't really matter, but I'll just say that's the majority of my clientele.
But I think you need to be open-minded to receive that or to experience that.
I think it's kind of more of like open-minded is one thing, but I'm going to say a stronger word. It's about surrender. It's about being receptive. I was telling a client of mine when he first came in, he kept questioning everything I was doing. Mm-hmm. And finally, after about 2-3 sessions, I'm like, you have to just surrender and be receptive. And he was ready to do that. I told him in the beginning. But you can see him changing. I mean, he has a very complex condition. And you can see him feeling better. And so what should people expect? I think that if you're really interested in doing integrative healing, energy medicine, know that it's not a one-off thing. It's not like you're coming to a psychic where you're gonna get an answer. This is an exploration of your health, and it really depends on if you have a complicated condition, it may take longer, but it's not going to be forever. I think usually people come from anywhere between 6 months and a year, in general, if there's complicated conditions. So be prepared for that, and then just be open. I've been doing this for 40 years, so I'm very intuitive. Most people feel really comfortable once they come in.
Mm-hmm. I've experienced that. And they want to come back after the first session, for sure. I experienced myself too. Another question, what would you say skeptics or critics about energy medicine, or specifically what you do?
I would say that this is pretty science-based, research-based, this work. My teachers who developed Body Intuitive, they did a lot of research on COVID. So yes, energy medicine can be very well researched. It's not quackery. It's not just some kind of woke methodology that doesn't make sense. It can really help you. And I think that if you're a skeptic, that's good. it's good to be skeptical because there are a lot of people doing energy medicine that might not be as effective. There's all different ranges of people. So I would say find somebody that you really resonate with, find somebody that makes a difference. And so if you're not getting results, trust yourself, trust your skepticism until it's not there.
And listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
Whatever resonates with you.
Right.
So where do you see energy medicine in the future? Would be a part of conventional medicine or would be
I think it's a feature of medicine. I
believe that too.
I think that, it's growing, and I've been working with a number of different modalities lately, and what it can do is way beyond what medicine can do. It's pretty phenomenal. Medicine doesn't have an answer for long COVID. It doesn't have an answer.
Doesn't have an answer for many things.
It doesn't have an answer.
Particularly going deeper and deeper to find the root cause. That's not a goal for our traditional medical system or medicine.
Right.
And with those epigenetic markers and with energy that affected them, that's the root cause of all kind of problem, right? If you go that deeper, then we can heal and help many people.
You're going into the mitochondrial DNA.
You cannot go any deeper, and energy it's on at an atomic basis, like protons, electrons. It's the smallest particle that we work with. How else you can get anywhere, right?
Yeah, so it's just really magical. It's really phenomenal. It's at a quantum level at this point. It's following science. I think that medicine just hasn't come along with science.
But
that's changing. I think that quantum medicine is the
new medicine of the future.
Yes. And so, we're all working on this. All of us who have been doing this for a long time, functional medicine, integrative medicine,
energy medicine. And now I'm so happy to be part of it because the research and technology that we use now to have a research and also go in the quantum space, it's amazing. So I think it would be proved on research level. And it's going to be future of our healing and our health. So I'm so excited about all the technology that we can use and what we can implement now and helping our clients, patients. Last question. So our podcast name is Harmonic Alignment. What does it mean for you to live in harmonic alignment?
That's a beautiful name, a beautiful question. Well, right now I feel like I'm in harmonic alignment. It's just like we have this energy going on between us, and there's a lot of joy and a lot of inquiry and deep fascination. So I think it is being in relationship with what's true, and there's a lot of stuff that's not true out there. There's a lot of medicine that's killing people. There's a lot of food that's killing people. There's a lot of social media that's really addictive and injurious. So I'm doing my best to kind of get rid of everything that I can that's keeping me from being able to live harmonically in alignment with the universe. It's like living in alignment with nature and the universe. That's how people used to live.
Like a shamans.
Like a shamans. That's what they're doing. They're hanging out at night looking at the stars, feeling into the stars.
Great. So thank you for all the information and whatever you do in the world. I'm so appreciated to have you in my life. And so tell our listeners how they can find you if they want to try your session.
You can go on my website, which is Laura Chalfant Qigong.com, or you can email me at laurachalfant.com if you want to get in touch with me directly.
All right. Thank you, Laura, for amazing interview and your wisdom and information. Thank you.
Well, thanks. It was so much fun, and thank you too. It was good, really great conversation.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Are you ready for your Energy for Life bioenergetic nest scan? Dr. Larisa Sharapova and myself, Priscilla Koblentz, offer personal, private, 90-minute consults to get you back to optimal health and well-being. And starting in the new year, we're offering an energy mastery program, a monthly membership, which will give you access to a monthly scan as well as 2 group masterclasses to help you optimize your wellness in the new year. For more details, visit the show notes or check out harmonicalignment.co. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Harmonic Alignment. If something resonated with you, we would love to hear about it. Please consider leaving us a 5-star review and subscribing so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Thank you. The information contained in this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider. Carefully read all labels and directions. The products and information received through the podcast should not be used to replace a consultation or advice from your healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem or have any healthcare questions, please promptly call your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Dr. Larisa Sharapova and Priscilla Koblenz and the producers, are not responsible for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained in this podcast. This podcast may contain endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct financial benefit to the product or services referenced.